visibility beats ability. It doesn't matter how good you are or what you do if no one knows. People can't trust you unless they know who you are.
Welcome back to the Full Out Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Mark Faris. Today we have Tom Storey of the Storey team. This guy is a real rock star, and he's a closer as well. So he is the top 1% of the entire nation at Roll a Page. He serves the Toronto market. He has 6 agents, 3 staff. He does over $2 million in gross commission in a year. And he has a real following on YouTube. He has over 17,000 followers. He has over 18,000 on Instagram. And he's doing this while balancing being a phenomenal dad and just an overall great guy. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So, Tom, you've been working online and doing a really good job at getting people to know who you are. And so you've been really successful as a real estate agent, providing a lot of value to the overall market. Can you share a little bit about your backstory and what got you into real estate?
Yeah, so I got my real estate license at 22 years old. So as many do when you graduate university, you go to Europe for a little bit. And then when I got home, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I didn't have anyone in my family that was in real estate, but my mother was always in sales. She had her own business, and it was the reason why we didn't have to be in daycare anymore as kids. We would be at home, and it was like interesting to me to see. So I started taking my real estate license as I got back. And at the time, you don't really know anything when you start. And my aunt was like, I have a friend in real estate. I'm like, cool. Can I work with him? So started with him for the first 6 months at a very small brokerage. And then started to figure out that, like, okay, the only way I'm surviving at this point, again, I'm 22, is I'm doing leases in downtown Toronto, and I'm building my network and building my database and going to as many conferences as I possibly could, meeting people and realizing, like, and I say this with love, is like the people that are doing more aren't always smarter than you. They just know the systems and structures to run. So I figured out, like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And I'm open with this too. Like 6 months into real estate, I was living in my parents' basement. I had made $10,000 in my first 6 months. And I had one buyer who called me and said, hey, obviously I didn't have them signed to a buyer rep because they didn't know what I was doing. They went into an open house, bought it with the listing agent. I remember sitting there being like, this isn't going to work
For me. Yeah.
Yeah. This only works at the moment because I'm 22 and I don't have expenses in my life. But like, I gotta start taking this seriously or figure out something else. And what actually happened was, near the end of my first year, I got a free ticket to a Richard Robbins event, and I sat at the very back and just watched, and it like opened up my mind to be like, okay, you can do this. There's systems that you can follow. And if you're a good person, you know what you're talking about. Like it takes time. So that's basically how the first little bit started. And then slowly over time, it's built up from there.
Now, what did you take in university?
Sociology.
So did you find any of that applicable, or did it help you in the real estate game at all?
I think a little bit in the way that, like, it's the understanding of just people. It's the study of people. So I think the one thing that I learned early on is, like, you kind of have to adapt to the person that you're sitting at the other side of the table. And knowing that, like, even like as recent as last week, I was doing a listing presentation. And I could just see the husband looking at me being like, get to the point. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to speed this up. Like, here's what your house is worth. Here's how long I need to get it on the market. And it saved me half an hour of them just staring at me with a blank face. So I think that it's helped me in that aspect of the business.
Yeah, right on. Now, you took a course, and it was very similar to my start. Like, I maxed out our credit cards. We were $10,000 in credit card debt. And 6 months in, it was like, what am I doing? And then I took a course. I went to, say, the mentor or the guide showed up in my life, right? And so you went to the Richard Robbins course or the conference, which is great, by the way. So in Toronto, if you're listening from down south, and he has about 1,000 people come out. Now, when you were sitting in the back, what were some of the tangible activities or actionables that you did that maybe changed the trajectory from not being productive to being like one of the top in the entire country?
I'd say the first one was just the thought that this is actually possible. Like, look, setting the goals a little bit higher to know that you can actually do this. There's other people that are doing it, and they don't know more than you. They're not better than you. They're just, well, they know more of the systems to run, right? So that was the first thing. The second one, which I still use to this day, is the ideal week, which is old real estate trading. I'm sure before Rich's days, but just look at your calendar and figure out, like, if you ran the perfect business, when would you be doing things? When would you be following up? When would you be doing appointments? And still to this day, I'm a very much like, in the morning, it's follow up. At this point, it's meeting with my team. And then afternoons is listing appointments, dealing with offers. If an offer goes into the morning, you're going to deal with it. But in a week, and now I'm just focused on how many appointments do I have to book every single day, and really just following my calendar, and then the understanding that once you build a database of people that you've worked with before, and in my case, that was people that I was helping rent properties because that's the only lead I could get at the time. If you just stay in touch, and you don't have to be like this amazing sales, if you just like really just stay in touch, deliver value on a monthly basis, and that's how the video stuff kind of came out, is they might refer you. And so it's like when you first start, everything you're doing is brand new. At this point now, it's like, yes, we have new business lead streams that we focus on as well, but a lot of our business is following a system, getting a pretty, nothing's guaranteed, but pretty close to guaranteed return on our database just by following what I know I need to do every single month.
That's so good. It's so interesting that a consistent theme, and it was the same for me as well, is when you believe it's possible for you, that you can do it. I think that is like, it's half the equation right there. So if you're out there, you're listening, you're like, I'm going through a real challenging point. One of the things to really look at is, do you think it's even possible for you? Is the door big enough for you to get through as well? Because there's thousands of agents. It's like, can anybody be successful? And it's interesting, if you don't really believe it's possible for you at your core, then you're not going to actually take the actions and go through the hardness. You're just going to paint it off to, we'll call it a victim story, that, I can't be successful. But as soon as you take initiative and change your thought patterns to say, yes, it is possible for me, then you take all those excuses off the table and you start to do the actionables. And Tom, the second point that you mentioned there about the ideal week, that's really good as well, of figuring out when you are productive and when you're not productive, like your green zones, your yellow zones, your red zones, and just being consistent with it. It's like the business is not complicated. It's simple. It's just not easy, right? It's the consistency of that. And then having the discipline to do it every day when you don't feel like doing it. What would you say would be the thing that gets you to do it when you don't feel like doing it? So it's in your calendar, you don't feel like it. Like, what helps you push through that beginning stage to get started?
Yeah, I'll tell you like a funny analogy that some people think is great and some people have no idea what I'm talking about. But, before the days of internet gaming where you could play online against people, you would play racing car games. And do you remember, like, you would do your first lap, and then the second lap you would do would be you race against a version of your car from your first lap. It was like a ghost car. I don't know what game I was playing. So you're basically trying to beat yourself. You're trying to beat your last lap. And I've only had 1 year that I didn't beat the last year. So it's like, regardless of my mood, I know that I don't really, everyone says they're not, like, I'm watching what's going on. Let's be clear. Like, I know what my competitors are doing and I'm a competitive person, but I want to beat my GCI. I want to, but not just GCI. Like, I want my profitability to go up every single year as well. So at this point in my career, it's because I just want to beat what I did previously. And I had the 1 year we didn't do it, and it annoyed me, even though I could blame the market. And yeah, but we could have found a way to make it work if we had adjusted things. But early on in the career, what it would have been is knowing that at that point, I then had examples of other people that were doing similar things, getting amazing results, and just knowing, like, okay, they're putting in the work, they're doing it, they've been doing it longer. If I give up now, I'm just never going to get to that point.
That's really good. So you had some encouragement there. Now, did you bring that to like the day to day? So did you, when you're comparing, was it more so, okay, for the year, I need to actually show up and work because the year overall number needs to be hit, versus I'm comparing, I want to beat today from yesterday's number? Would you bring it down to more of that micro, or to be more of the macro year that you would look at it, where you'd be motivated to take action?
Normally it would be like a quarterly report that I would review to figure out where we're at. But maybe I should do it weekly. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's working for you, whatever you're
so
doing.
far
I mean,
it's worked quarterly. And like at the end of the day, and I've watched you from afar for a long time, and it's very clear. It's like, okay, to be good in real estate, you got to be great at marketing. You got to figure out ways to create opportunity. Then when you get the opportunity, you got to be great at presenting. And then you have to be good at negotiating. And then once the deal's done, you have to stay in touch with people. Like the systems are there. We can all follow them. So there's also like, you still got to have fun with it. I've realized for me, like my favorite thing is presenting. If I could just go on 10 listing appointments, like a few days ago, I went 3 on a Saturday morning because I was away the week before. So I jammed them all in. I was like, I'm the happiest guy ever. I love listing appointments, but I know other people, there'd be other versions of that in their business.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it's good you figured out that there's steps along the way. And I think a lot of people, they'll say, yeah, I need more leads, or a lot of agents, I need more leads. But then between leads to firm sale, there seems to be a whole bunch of like cloudiness versus clear, specific, we'll call them conversion points or pipelines. And so you have leads coming in, but you got to be able to convert a lead to an appointment, not to a sale. You got to first, one step further, is to an appointment, and then you got to take that appointment and convert it to an agreement, and then you got to take that agreement and convert it to a sale. And then here's the kicker that I found that I know that you're really big on, especially with the database being a focus, is once you get a firm sale, there's a conversion point to actually get a referral there as well, which is another step that. And so if you break it down as in, okay, there's clear conversion points along the way, it gives you more clarity to get really good at that leverage point and that conversion point. And so I think a lot of agents miss that point. And it's like, I need a firm sale. And I need more leads. I need a firm sale. But do you know, if you double each of your conversions, you have no new leads coming in, but you double your conversion rate from lead to appointment, agreement to firm, and all the way along, you can actually 10x your business with no new leads. And that to me is like, there's a real eye opener if you can really break it down. And so I want to ask you a little bit about your listing presentation, because, a lot of agents out there, it's like scripts, presentations. I like to wing it. Tell me a little bit about how you handle your listing presentation in regards to, do you actually have a presentation you follow? Do you follow a script? And tell us a little bit about how you've created mastery in that presentation.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time really trying to enhance our listing presentation and being the best presenter I possibly can be, because I know how much effort it takes to get that seat at the kitchen table. And earlier on in my career, I was so frustrated. I was like, I feel like I'm kind of good at what I'm doing, but why am I not getting these opportunities? Now I have a lot of these opportunities, and I'm not going to let them just go by. Like if I go in there, I'm showing up seriously, whether it's someone I've never met before or my best friend. I'll still say, like, I'm going to treat you like we've never met, so you can see the business side of me, not just the guy you knew growing up. So essentially there's a few different ways that we kind of look at the listing appointment. One thing we got to get back to that we used to do really, really well is, once the appointment is booked, once we have the time that it's booked, my assistant will actually reach out even before anything's been signed and just introduce herself, just so they know, okay, it's not just Tom, there's a team involved. We used to courier them this pre-listing box, which we got to get back to doing because it used to really help. And it just had the listing presentation, a few fun things, like nothing crazy, but just makes you stand out if you were to be in competition. And then the actual listing presentation, I have a physical booklet there's basically 5 main things that we'll talk about with a seller, and I can go over that with you. But I'm showing up, I'm touring the property, I'm sitting down, and the first thing I'm trying to do is disarm them. So again, keep in mind, I'm not giving sales advice with what I'm about to say. I'm just going to say it works for me. The first thing I'll say to every single seller is like, Mark, thank you so much for having me over. I just want to let you know before we get started, I'm not going to ask you to sign anything today. I'm going to go over all the things I would want to know if I was in your position to sell this property and make a great decision. And you can almost see their shoulders go from like this to like, they're like, okay, cool. All right, we're just going to have a conference. And they open up really early. And then there's basically like, why us? What do we do to market your property? What's going on in the market right now? What's your property worth, and what do we charge? And I find that that's kind of what every seller wants the answer to. So we have a very structured way of going through that. The commission is the final thing we talk about. We have different options that they can choose from depending on what they're looking for. But I'm very strategic with it. It's very structured. I am the opposite of winging it.
So now scripting, is this something that so you have your set presentation. Do you write out what it is that you say, or is it bullet form? I mean, you have a team now as well. So
Mhm.
how are you able to take, because I hear this a lot from agents, is like, I got to go on the listing presentation, or they'll say they'll bring an agent with them and like follow me, but it's more so like listen to what I'm saying and then
Right.
try and catch on instead of clarity. How do you, is there a script involved with it? And then how do you communicate that to your team?
Yeah, I've never like actually written down a script. I probably should. The way that I think about it is like when I do presentations to real estate offices or things like that, I have my slides which kind of remind me what direction I'm going. So that's kind of how I think about it, is when I'm flipping through the pages, when I see that next page, that kind of unlocks. I know exactly what I'm going to say. It's muscle memory at this point. Um, and what I find in the presentation too is because there is a lot to cover, I make it very clear before I start talking. I say, I'm about to talk for about 15 minutes. Stop me at any point here if you have questions on anything, like interrupt me. So I make it very clear to them. So no, there's no like actual written down script other than just the structure of how I've kind of figured out in my mind and has worked really well over the years. And the team thing too, like I still struggle with that. If I'm away and a team member goes on a listing appointment, the conversion's not the same if it's not me. And you could probably teach me how to change that, but it's not perfect.
Well, you are a closer. I mean, we've sent business over to you, and you're able to close, which means you do it, and you do a great job, because closing is one thing, but then getting a good testimonial. I mean, 5-star Google reviews. That's what, to me, it's like that's where the check is. Once you go through the funnel, you go through the process, and you close, and it's like, yes, there's a 5-star. Then that's like the real goal, and you've been great at that. So you've obviously been successful, and it's interesting that the listing presentation is, for me, is when you got lit up, when you said that, I was like, I really resonate with that, because the listing presentation is like, it's an art on how you go about doing it. And when you get, I think if you get really good when you love something. And so that's where, when you're saying, when I go in on 3 listing appointments a day, it's the best. It's the best. And being able to bring somebody from one side of the bridge over to the other side is something that's, it's a form of art. And I don't know if many real estate agents will look at it that way, but having a process to be able to follow, so that you can, at the end, you can look back and say, hey, listen, did I follow all the steps along the way? That's a much better way to figure out why I didn't get an appointment, versus like, I'm not really sure what I did, or blaming the client. Oh, they just wanted a discount. Right. And so that's where, that I think it starts with genuinely loving the process.
You know what we found too, is that when the appointment's booked, when my assistant initially reaches out to introduce herself, we also do just say, we have another point in the email that says, if you have a few minutes before you meet with Tom, can you fill out our seller survey? And it
Mm,
essentially tells us everything about the house. Now, I
mm,
haven't signed anything with them at this point. I've even met
yeah.
with them. Some people will fill that out fully before I've even met with them. And it's almost them telling me, like, we've already kind of decided we're working with you.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And the best compliment I've ever had was recently. We met with clients, and they had referred me their parents as well. So I listed their condo, and then I'm going to sell their parents. And she's
Mm.
like, yeah, my dad said he likes you. Like, normally he hates real estate agents. I was like, well, great. I'm glad that I didn't come off as what he assumes that
Yeah.
we all are. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think calling ahead, having your assistant call ahead, is a real nice touch. And, then by filling out that survey, especially for more of the detailed oriented sellers, they would, I think, be more committed to you once they fill that out. And so I really like that. I haven't heard that before. So that's a really good nugget on that side.
We learned that kind of by mistake. We didn't know what we were doing. But when we noticed, when people filled it out, it was like a 90% chance that they're
Yeah.
working with us, versus if they
Yeah.
didn't, it was lower.
So a really interesting thing is when you start listening, maybe this conversation, or you're just starting out, or even if you've been in the business for a long time, the interesting thing is, with the listing appointment or any part of the service, is that you're never really done. I've had to revamp our presentations multiple times all through the years, and we continue to do that because you get a little nugget here. It's like, oh, I just got something from Tom. How can I slide that in? And I think it's that ongoing pursuit of excellence. I think when you think that it's finished, that's where you start to decline. But when you constantly have this learning mindset, this curiosity mindset that, I don't know everything, I think that that's such a good foundation for the listeners out there to really look at. It's like, okay, I have a presentation. I can't learn anything else. I'm good. I think if they take one or two nuggets from this and apply it, and they keep doing that over time, that's what mastery comes.
Losing a few makes you realize
Yeah.
that you. There was one recently that I was like, like every listing you want, but I was like, I want this
Yeah.
one. This is right in my zone. This is the coolest property I've
Yeah.
ever seen. And I lost it. And they said something about the other agent's marketing plan. And I know there's nothing that other agent can do that I can't. So all
Yeah.
I could think about is how did they word
Yeah.
what they're doing? And so I immediately went to my office and said, Karen, to my assistant, I was like, I want to make a hardcover book that goes through 10 case studies of our 10 most beautiful listings ever, and exactly how we prepare them, how we present them, so I can leave that behind now so that there's no imagination on how we present properties. Because I was so like,
Yeah.
if I got it, I never would have made that change. And now it's like, okay, I'm going to be better moving forward because they don't all work out.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. What do they say? Like fear of loss is twice as strong as like the upside of gain. And so it's where I don't want to lose another one of those. So it's gonna force me to do something here different and take action. Yeah, that's really good. All right. Now, how about on the service side of it? Like, what do you do a client comes on and they're saying, "Yeah, Tom, you're the guy. Let's go through the sale process." Is there anything you do along the way that you think is like this is really important that you deliver on that to be able to get that 5-star Google review at the end of the day?
Yeah. So whether it's a buyer or a seller, if it's the seller side, after I make it clear that I'm not going to ask you to sign something today, which by the way, many times they're ready to sign at the end that we do
Yeah, I
sign
would
things.
imagine.
Or
Yeah.
just,
Come
to
on,
be
Tom, will you
clear.
take my
Yeah.
signature?
Yeah.
I was
I'm
like,
not
sure.
going to sign, just to be clear. But
Yeah.
after that, we have a mission statement at the front of our listing presentation, and there's a picture of my team. And I don't read through it word by word. I just say to them, I just want to let you know, before we go any further here, my business model is word of mouth. My goal here is to do a really, really good job for you so that at the end of this process, you want to talk about me to your friends and family. And that makes it so much easier at the end. You've almost in a really nice non-salesy way told them, hey, if I deliver, can you talk to other people about me? And it makes it really easy. Like you said, like multiplying the opportunities you can get from your listings is once it's gone firm and you call them and ask for the Google review, they're like, yeah, absolutely. And then you're like, well, you're awesome. You must know other awesome people. Who else can I help? So it makes the ask not as like cringy or salesy as it maybe could have been. So that's one thing. And then I think the setting the expectation is something that I don't know. It's not really taught, or I haven't found it being taught in real estate training, is like how to properly set the expectation with a seller. And for me right now, we're in a very tough market in the market share that I have. And making it clear that like, this might take a while. And if your property hasn't received an offer in this many days, I'm going to call you and we're going to talk about price. Tough conversations. And as the market adjusts, I went from a moment in my career where everything I listed sold over the asking price with multiple offers to everything I'm listing now, not all of it selling, some of it selling, not very few multiple offers, where I'm being clear with sellers is saying people used to hire me because I could get them more money than somebody else in a hot market. Now you're hiring me because I can sell it. So it's just making sure they're aware that like, I'm not here to promise you the world. I'm here to say, I'm going to tell you what you actually need to hear if your goal is to get this done and you're happy with this price.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good because there could be all kinds of objection handlers to be able to get a price reduction down the road. But the best objection handler is to handle it before the objection even comes up by setting the expectation.
Exactly. There's a few data points that will show every seller depending on, what their property is. And this is kind of like what Rich taught me is like you gotta let them trip over the truth, or you gotta visually show them. You can't just tell them. So one of our first pages when we talk about the market, regardless of what their property is, I'll take out a pen and I'll show them active listings, recently sold, and we'll calculate the months of inventory. And it allows me to explain to them what that actually means, and then I can show them average days on market for the properties that are selling. Because if it never sold, it doesn't go in the average days on market. So they know if we haven't received an offer by that day, it's probably a pricing conversation. And then the list versus sale price ratio, I really like that too. In my market right now, the condos that are selling are getting 97% of the asking price, and we've gone through a market that buyers have been told it's not a great market. If you buy, you better get a deal. So buyers believe money off asking price equals deal. That's not always true. So we make it clear that if this is what we're looking for, maybe we go slightly higher here to leave the negotiation room. So like we might sell a little bit under asking, but we were strategic in the way of figuring that out. And that if there's 4 months of inventory, that means 25% of homes like yours are selling every 30 days. How can we get in that 25%? So it's like you kind of set the stage up front with them as using the numbers, because you might not like them, but they are what they are. And then going further in the presentation to show them, okay, now we know only 25% are selling every month. Here's what we do to make sure you're in that 25%.
Yeah, that context is so helpful. I think sometimes you say months of inventory to a client and you just expect them to understand. So I like your idea of like you actually get a piece of paper and a pen out and you write it
It's
up for them.
it's literally in our book. We have a page of an MLS map with all the different zones, because
Mm,
only realtors know what that means. So I show them where they're located,
yeah.
and then I pull out the stats, and it's all in there. I take a pen and write in my book, and we do the calculation together. Because and I'll say them too. I'm like, I'm curious, have you ever heard of the term months of inventory?
Mm.
There's been like one client that's ever been like, yes,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah, I think
absorption rate.
so. Yeah, I've heard something about it. It's like, would you like me to tell you? Oh, okay, fine. You tell me, but I think I know what it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It also allows you as a realtor to explain something to the client that they don't know,
Mm,
because they believe they might have all the information, but
yeah.
they might have it. They're just not quite sure how to make sense of it.
Yeah. And that would definitely help you position more as an authority or market expert.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the process of teaching it would probably anchor it even further in you, that when you're walking on a day-to-day basis, you have your numbers cold because you're doing it so regular.
I'll usually do the calculation for their property in the months of inventory before I walk in.
Yeah.
So I don't pull out my calculator. I just say active listings and sales. I go, this means this. And they look at me. They're like, did you just do that in your head? I'm like, no, I did it before.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
like a good opportunity
Yeah.
to have a little laugh with them too.
You know, Rain Man?
Yeah.
That's me. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Okay. So we talked about the converting, we talked about on the service side of it. Now, for you on the lead generation, so we're going upstream. So becoming known. That's one of the things that when I was at this real estate conference, I was talking to this other operator, and this is when we were getting into the building a real estate investment firm. And I'd spoken with this guy beside, and this is before the main presenter came out. And I was telling him like a little bit about myself. It's like, yeah, I built a real estate team. This was a few years ago. Built a real estate team up north, and yeah, we have a small portfolio. We have about 50, 60 units up there. And I thought I was doing okay. And he kind of looked at me. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, he kind of like, oh, that's so cute. So cute. Like, and he was coming from a place of, well, because I was Canadian, being Canadian as well, as like kind of like a cute puppy look. And so these guys that were there had like 5,000 units, 10,000 units. So the main presenter comes out right around there and cuts off the conversation. So, and he started saying that, well, he asked the question, what's more important, know, like, or trust? Know, like, or trust? And I'm like, oh, of course, trust. 80% of the people stuck up their hand, trust. And he said something that kind of changed my perspective on marketing overall. He said, it's no, because if they don't get to know you, the clients don't get to know you, then they won't get a chance to like or even trust you. And at that moment, I'm like, oh, that's a good one. And then you start to see a guy like Grant Cardone, although, whether you're a fan or not, it really doesn't matter. The guy knows how to get known. And as a real estate agent, it dawned on me that the number one issue that agents have is, we'll call it obscurity. Nobody knows that they even exist. And so you could have the best service, but you got to get known to, maybe it's a sphere to start with, smaller sphere, and work your way out. So you picked a really cool platform to become known. And so maybe you could take us through the beginning journey of, with YouTube on social platforms, and how you actually started that. Because I look back on your history, and you've been doing this for quite a while. So maybe you could start at the beginning and take us through how you ramped up and, become one of the most, recognized Canadian names in real estate.
I had a similar moment to what you had, where I was interviewing, the company Bomb Bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Pacinelli used to be their marketing guy, and I interviewed him for something, and he said something. He said, "Visibility trumps ability," and I've taken that. Visibility beats ability. You can change the words around, and it's so true. It's like, it doesn't matter how good you are or what you do if no one knows, and that's just another way of saying exactly what you just said, which is like, people can't trust you unless they know who you are, right? So you start somewhere. And that was the realization for me, is that, like, at the time when I started the video content, I didn't really have enough money to do more of the traditional marketing things. I couldn't have really afforded to make flyers work or billboards work or things like that. My friends were still, even if they liked me and trusted me, they couldn't afford to buy yet. And their parents didn't look at me as the guy they trusted in real estate. Yeah, like, that takes time to. Now I've got that, which is pretty cool, but that took a long time. Even now, people are still like, "You're young." I'm like, "I've been doing this 12 years. Like, I'm not that young." So what it was is I decided, I think December of 2015 was like the light bulb moment, and I got my license in February of 2014. And what happened was, I decided every single month I'm going to put out a video blog, or whatever they were called at that time. And I was going to call it the Story Report, because that's my name and it made sense. And I would literally just read through the Toronto real estate stats. I would make a video out of it. I would post it on YouTube, simply because that allowed me to have it on my website, which is what I actually cared about, that the video was on my website. And then I could email blast it to the database that I had of renters to show them, here's what's going on. And then that kind of snowballed, and I kept doing that, and I consistently did it every single month. And then what started happening is, other realtors from other markets started referring me business. They're like, "You're the Toronto guy on video." I'm like, "Yeah, but I didn't make this for you." But then I started getting agent to agent referrals, and I was like, "Okay, whoa, there's something here." Even now, you mentioned my Instagram following. I bet 75% are just other realtors that follow me on Instagram. But I know that, and that's why my content there is slightly different than my YouTube content. And then what really happened is, when the pandemic hit, my old YouTube videos that were market updates started, like, people started commenting on them, and they started getting views. And I'm like, "That's weird." Like, I just put them on here because they were on my website. And then I realized, like, okay, people want to learn. And this was like, I forget what year it happened, like, as the data for Treb became public, like the sale data became public, and there was all these, people were really into try to figuring out what was going on. So I started making videos specifically just for YouTube to tell people what was happening. And they'd get 100 views, and then they start getting 1,000 views, and then it was 5,000, and then 10,000. And now it's like consistently around 10,000 per video, like, if you average it all out over the last few years. And I didn't pay for the views. It's all just the algorithm pushing it. And I had to learn a lot along the way. And to be very frank, take a lot of crap in the comments, because not everyone's thrilled with real estate prices in Canada. But then all I did is I just changed and had a very slight call to action. In the first 30 seconds of every video, I just said, like, "If you want to connect with me, I work in Toronto, and you can book a call below." And then people started doing it. And then I remember the first one that reached out, and he's like, "I have this condo I need to sell, and I got to buy a house." And I'm like, "I didn't know you existed until 5 minutes ago." And then we sold the condo for 740. He bought a house for 2.1 million. And I remember, like, putting it in my tracker and being like, "Source." And I was like, "YouTube?" Like, that's pretty cool. And then I'm like, okay, this is something. And so last year, YouTube actually was about 25% of our GCI.
Wow.
So it kind of snowballed over the years, and now it's like filming a video for me is prospecting, because I know I can now talk about a topic depending on the business I'm looking to get, and there's a good chance someone's going to reach out.
Mm, that's really good. And you're coming from a place of trying to provide value, and then it snowballed into, okay, who should I be talking to? So do you more so focus your content on, so is it YouTube more buyers and sellers and Instagram more for eight? Okay.
Basically, consumers is YouTube, and I really only post a few types of videos: market updates, news headline breakdowns, which are videos I don't even love, but they do help your channel grow really fast when you take a headline and tell people what's actually going on. List videos, best of, worst of, top 10. People love that. It's evergreen. But the ones that are actually the best for generating opportunity are what I would call like informational guides. So I have a 45-minute video on everything you need to know about buying a condo in Toronto. I bet I've sold 25 properties from that one video. Like, I, for sure. We have another one, step-by-step guide on how to buy your first home in Canada. It's a 35-minute video where it's like, it's no different. It's my buyer presentation. That's all it is. But I get to do it to the internet, and thousands of people watch. And actually, coming up this week, because of that video, I'm doing a first-time home buyer seminar to a company that pays their employees pretty well, and I got 70 people on the call I get to talk to from that one video. So you just never know, and people just want to learn. And if you're the one that can teach them how to do it, and you understand the ins and outs of the back end of YouTube, which I don't know if you want to go there today, but it's a powerful tool. People go there to learn. They go to the other platforms to, scroll and be entertained.
Maybe take us down that path a little bit here, Tom, in regards to like why YouTube versus Instagram. Because here, the reality is, I think most agents get so overwhelmed with so many things. They go to a Richard Robbins event, or like they see all these speakers up there doing all these things. It's like, how am I going to do this? Or maybe they might start and then they get distracted on another. Why YouTube? And maybe the other platforms, what they maybe how and what they should start with, and how they can consistently maybe keep doing it.
Yeah. So why YouTube was similar to when I started running the systems earlier in my career is because I actually had proof. There's quite a few American realtors doing YouTube and getting results. And I kind of watched and learned from what they were doing, and jumped on a few webinars to figure out like what are they talking about? How are they asking people to reach out to them? And I realized there was a bit of a model there you could kind of follow. Um, and then what I realized, and again, this is one of those things where like I have an opinion on it, which I'm glad to be proven wrong. But I have friends of mine that have 500,000 followers on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how many homes did you sell last year because
Good
of
question.
TikTok? And
Yeah.
they're like, two. I'm like, cool.
Oh,
Like, we did
wow.
35 on YouTube, and I have 17,000 followers. So there's something doesn't
Yeah.
add up. And,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to be a internet celebrity. I'm a business owner, and
Mm.
YouTube happens to be a tool that is a great way to meet potential buyers and sellers. And that's why I make the videos, not because it's nice to be recognized once in a while on the street. It's because like I want to generate opportunities for my business. And what I found too, and maybe this is just because I never really got into the paid lead side of things. I've never done Google pay-per-click or paid leads anywhere ever. I do online leads, but they're different because I don't pay for the views. They come and learn, and then they reach out. So that's to me, it's like YouTube and having an email list, I would say, would probably be the most powerful places to build a following in 2025 as a real estate agent.
Yeah, that's really good. The email list is of untold importance. You speak with, I mean, tell us a little bit about the email list, because you go to any influencer that's out there, and their whole talk is, anytime you're on another platform, it's not your own real estate. The goal is to scrape and pull them back to that email list. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. Yeah. So the way that we've built it out over the years, because there's different ways you can do it, right? You can run ads to have a lead magnet that someone trades their email for, and you can build probably a bigger email list that way, but just not as quality of an email list, at least in my view. So the way that we've done it is we build the YouTube following first, but I don't have all their emails. So in videos, I'll sometimes just say, and it's in the description of every video, just below the link you can book a call with me, is we have free buyer guides and seller guides that you can download, trade for your email. And it's actually funny. The first time I set it up, I had done it on the back end on Typeform, and I never had it going to my CRM. I just and I looked, and it had only been 3 months. I had 500 emails in it. And I was like, oh my God, like this works. So the way we've been building the list is not paying for ads for lead magnets to get the list. It's been, you're already watching me. You kind of know who I am. You trust me enough to give me the email for the lead magnet. And the cool thing about the lead magnet, these guides we put together, is just ChatGPT watching a video I've already made, putting it into an ebook, and then sending it to a graphic designer. That's all it is. So that's how we've been building out the email list, which has been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and it's simple enough. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. It's simple enough. So now the magic question here is, how do you start? How would you recommend for an agent to start? And then how do you keep it consistent? Because that's been one of the things for you, is the consistency.
Yeah. So in terms of starting, what I would say is, whether you're going to spend money on expensive stuff at this point, you need a place that you can sit down and record videos that is stationary, that stays in one place. Otherwise, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Halfway through setting it up the next time, you're gonna be like, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So you got to have a desk, a camera, a microphone, lighting, whatever you want, whatever you choose it to be. You have a place you can sit down, click record, and talk. So that's what I found has been the biggest hurdle and the barrier of just, I have an idea, I can sit down, and I can just do it. Right. Now, I ended up building a studio in my basement because I realized this is a great investment for my business, but it wasn't always like that. I was doing it in my living room, and it's kind of, changed over time. And then what I found is, if you want to start and you want to actually build a following, you kind of have to do the type of videos that are my least favorite, but you got to play the game. So when BlogTO puts out their headline saying 20 Toronto sellers are worried, 20,000 homes on the market, you take that headline and you go, actually, there's only 7,000 listings in Toronto. 20,000 was all the Treb areas combined.
Right.
And of those listings, 70% of them were condos. So here's how many homes were actually for sale in Toronto, and here's what's going on. Like, those are the videos that will grow. You'll get a lot of people in the comments that love real estate or hate real estate, but that will grow your channel really fast, which then allows you to make the actual helpful videos, which is, hey, you're a buyer. Here's 5 things I wish I knew before I bought my first condo. And this is what I've learned over the years, or seeing the mistakes that my clients have made along the way. And then in terms of the consistency of it, like, minimum once a week, minimum. If you're not going to do once a week, honestly, it's not going to work. Ideally 2 videos a week.
That's good. Were there any other things in the algorithm other than consistency and the headlines? Were there anything else that was like, okay, this was significant?
Yeah. The thumbnail of the video and the title are the same version of, they're the know and like to get to trust. If people don't click on it, it don't matter what you say or if you know what you're talking about. And keep in mind, most people on YouTube are on their phones, and your little thumbnail is like the tiny little thing that you got to make it, enticing enough for them to actually click on it. And I've done YouTube masterminds. There's lots of great people I could recommend your followers, or I can tell you after, of people that I've really learned from to understand how this all works. And what you realize once you've been doing it a while is you can go back in time, and YouTube will always show you which one of your videos has been the most viewed in the last 48 hours. And I still, that condo buyer video, which is 3 years old, is always second or third most viewed every 48 hours. I made it 3 years ago. So that actually tells me I have to remake that video and revamp it for 2025. And then if you don't have your own videos to look back on, it's really easy. Who else is doing it, whether it's in your market or not? Go to their page. You can click by video views most popular. What are their most popular videos? Could you do something similar where you're not ripping them off, but you're taking the idea and putting your own spin on it? That would help your channel grow very fast.
It's really good. Such great insight. And what I love about it is it's simple enough to understand. That's one of the things I found, Tom, with really we'll say the best of the best in any industry is that if they can explain things to you very simply without like all the big legal, whether it's industry jargon and the complexity side, if they can break it down to the simple, then, they truly understand it. And it's kind of like, you know, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter. And so I was like, if you just do these things, and, real estate is a matter of doing few things but doing them really well and going deep. And so that's where in this channel you've done that. And it's I love watching it as well. It's smart. So okay, so there's an agent that's listening to this right now, and let's just go back maybe to, you're starting out in the business again, knowing everything that you know now. How would you start off that business within the first like 6 months? What key activities would you do to get going?
Yeah, so I identify what my first to build the business, what my first 4 lead pillars would potentially be. So if I were to redo it again, my lead pillars would be my database, which I would do through. It would still be the same. I'd be getting rental clients when I first start, at least in Toronto. Other markets are different. My second one would be the YouTube channel, knowing what I know. My third one would be agent referral, is trying to build that network as quickly as possible. And then the fourth one would probably be open houses. I'm not an open house guy. I haven't done an open house in years, but if I were to start again and I actually wanted to get quicker business, that would be my 4 pillars. And realistically, if I started knowing what I knew now, but I didn't have a network, I would join the top producing team in my market and go.
Yeah.
And want opportunity and go get it done, because I wouldn't want to sit there and hope it comes to me. I'd want people that can give me opportunity.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's good insight, and it's simple enough to follow. Again, just going back, I say it a lot, but it's one of those things you can. I've stared at agents in the face, said, "Do this, this, and this," and then like 3 months later, I'll run into them again, and I'm like, "So how did that go?" It's like, "Well, I did you read that book? Did you take action on that?" It's like, "Well, I started reading it, or yeah, I read it." I'm like, "Did you implement anything from it?" It's like, "No," and so that's actually one of the best compliments you can give to somebody that gives you advice, is to actually go and implement and then come back and say, hey, you know what you said, I implemented, and is this, and this is the results. And so that's really good advice. Now, you work with, say, an investor comes to you today. So there's a lot going on in the market, and the condo market is something that you specialize in Toronto. But what would you give to, or what advice would you give to investors, or what are some of the challenges maybe that you're facing when an investor comes to you and says, hey, Tom, listen, I own my own principal residence. I want to invest more into real estate. What advice and counsel are some challenges that you face when that investor comes to you today?
Yeah, it's a very difficult investor market right now, because most investors would like one of 2 things: appreciation or cash flow, and they don't exactly exist right now in the Toronto condo market. But also understanding that this is a moment in time. So the way that I would look at it is what we've been talking about this whole day, is simplifying it. And Chris Slightum, who owns the brokerage that I work for Royal LePage, drilled this in my head long ago. Was like, Tom, how much money do you need to retire? And I gave him a number. He's like, it's probably going to be more than that. He's like, double it. I'm like, okay. He's like, your principal residence, I don't want to talk about. That's fine. You can figure that out. How many investment properties would you have to have, and how much would they have to pay you every single month? And I'm not talking, I don't care if the value goes up. How long would it take to pay them off? And then once they're paid off, what would they be paying you in today's rent? Because you can inflation adjust in the future where it would be, right? And I'm like, okay, I'd like this much money every month guaranteed. He's like, okay, you need this many properties. So, like everything, it would be that really long-term perspective on it. I've only ever sold my investment properties to put the money into another real estate opportunity. I've never truly cashed out on it. It's always been kind of moving around. So that would be the simple advice right now for investors, is like, well, why are you buying this? And the biggest question I found these days, you ask them like, what would success look like to you with this investment? And some people are like, I just want my kid to have a place when they're 18. It's like, okay, great. So let's focus on the areas we think would make sense in the future, and let's go get it. And if someone's like, well, I need this to double in price in 10 years, I'd probably say like, well, I don't know if that's going to happen. So it's a tough one right now because there's not a ton of condo investors making decisions right now. They're all waiting patiently on the sidelines. But if it were to re-engage, my advice would remain the same. Buy for long term. Uh, you can get cash. I mean, to get cash flow in Toronto right now, you gotta put down 40%. So it's like that's I would qualify that as manufacturing cash flow by putting down more, and then you're less leverage, which could be a good thing. But I don't know if that answered the question, but it's an interesting market right now for the investor side of things.
It's really good insight, and it's one of the big questions when agents maybe get into the business. They have this mindset that, oh, I'm going to sell real estate and I'm going to become a millionaire from the income that you're generating from selling real estate. And so the agents that came on our team that are now millionaires are the ones that, yeah, they sold a lot, but they're the ones that invested in real estate as well. And so this is probably one of the number one regrets that when I speak with agents, I ask them like, what regrets do you have? And they're like, I wish I would have bought more real estate. And the one of the biggest, I really reflected on this question is like, why is that? It's because they got distracted along the way. They just didn't pay attention to say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take some money off the table and I'm going to redeploy that back into the stuff that I'm selling and into real estate because it's made more millionaires than any other asset class, 90% of millionaires. And so, that's where not only does it help you become, we'll say, more wealthy along the way, but it actually makes you a better real estate agent as well. When you're actually invested, you can have different conversations or better conversations with other investors. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, like I actually just went through. I no longer own any condo properties in Toronto because of a decision that I made. And this is just going back to being a numbers person. The gap in condo price to average freehold price has gone up 30% in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And what I know to be true is the only thing we are building right now in Toronto is purpose-built rentals.
Mm-hmm.
The condo launches aren't even selling out, so the stuff coming was sold 3 years ago. But what all my clients want is semi-detached or detached homes in a few specific pockets of the city, and they're not building any more of that. So if I'm going to put a bet on Toronto real estate for the next little bit, it's going to be freehold. So I've actually taken some of my money out of condo investments, gone into more freehold investments, just because of what I believe. I could be totally wrong, but that's just the way I look at it. So educating yourself. And I made a video on my YouTube channel, which I was really worried about posting, called I Sold All My Condos, because I'm so active in the market. And I've had so many people be like, why did you do that? And I can say, well, here's what I'm thinking, and here's why I did it and why I'm happy with my decision. Maybe it makes sense for you, but the only reason I could even sell my condos to move the money to freehold is because I bought them. I couldn't have afforded to get the freehold stuff if I didn't get in somewhere along the way.
Yeah. Well, now you look back at that move, Tom, and people say, well, you're a genius. You timed the market. Maybe, I don't know. It sounds like your timing was good, but I think the key there is that you read the market, but you didn't get out of the market completely. You redeployed it into another asset class, which is still real estate. Is that right?
Yeah, I was watching it happen in real time.
Yeah.
Like if you just look at average sale price today for a condo, it's this in Toronto, it's the same as end of 2019. Like we're back
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Freehold properties are not even close. They're even with a big drop off from the peak. Still, it doesn't matter. They're up significantly. And I watch this trend, and I watch what my clients want, and I go, okay, there's something happening here. I'm going to make a decision based on what I believe, and it's worked out so far. We'll see in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Right on. It's similar, very similar process that I found. Like we were buying these single family properties actually buried north of you, and we were buying them and they were cash flowing all through the years. And then, when interest rates doubled, and I just found that all of a sudden they were not cash flowing the same way. And I mean, appreciation was not as strong. So I started looking at, okay, where else can you deploy? And then that's where I got into this whole value add. And then buying our office buildings, that was another thing. Because I always had these business owners after they retired, and I said, what was the best thing you did? They're like, well, the business, we sold it and went well, but the building that the business was in was worth more than the business itself. And I'm like, okay. So I'm not the smartest guy, but I'll listen to them. I'm like, okay, I'll just do that. So,
Hmm.
and then we started getting into multifamily, and then we started actually looking down south, and then we found cash flowing and appreciation properties. But I think the key there is to be constantly looking at where's the opportunity, but to make sure that it's still parked in real estate. Because Tom, you probably get this all the time as well, that you have that buyer that sold, or the seller that sold everything, and they're just parking it in the bank account. They're like, I'm going to wait for it to tank. And then they never get into the market, and they're always chasing it.
What I found too is even more recently when, I mean, the rates have come down here in Canada, but they're pretty high for a bit, where like you could lock into GICs at numbers that didn't exist for a long time. They were
Yeah.
looking pretty good for a while there, or the high interest savings account. And everyone's like, well, I'm getting out of real estate and I'm putting all into this because it's better. I'm like, yeah, but for most of these people, the only reason you had all that money to
Yeah.
put in there is because you were in real
Yeah.
estate.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, okay, I get
Yeah.
it, but you have to understand where it came from as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. It's good to acknowledge and then be able to, I'd say, guide and not be an order taker with your clients. Like, why would you do that? You need to do this. And I think that the best agents can just be real with their clients and say, I know you're hearing this, but here's what I like, let's do this over here. And here's why.
Mhm.
And coming from this place of love, not because you want a sale, but because the data and your experience is saying that that's the best thing. That's what you would do, and you maybe do with your own money. And I think that's like just being completely clear with them rather than like, oh, okay, and then letting them slide. Because if you get them to do something different down the road, Tommy, you probably have this. It's like down the road they call you like, Tom, thank you so much. You saved me from myself making a silly mistake.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I've had many times too, and I'm sure you've seen this a million times, where someone calls me and they're like, "I'm going to buy this,"
yeah,
and I'm like, I don't think you should,"
yeah.
and they're like, "I'm going to buy this whether you help me or someone else." So I've always found this like ethical dilemma
Yeah,
on like, okay, like I'm not going to
yeah,
stop you. I'm going to give you
yeah,
my opinion and I'll still help
yeah,
you. So I don't agree with everything that clients have done, but I'm also
yeah,
not the one that it's not my money. I can tell
yeah,
you what I would do with my money. So I found that's a fine line to try to figure out.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I found when somebody says something like that in general, I'm like, let's meet for coffee. I want, and then we'll sit down face to face. Like, help me understand. Tell me a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish, and then, I think you had mentioned it earlier. Like, you want or is it? I think Rich told you got to let the truth kind of
Yeah, trip over the truth.
trip over the truth. It's like you start asking the questions, and then by the time the conversation comes to the end, it's kind of like, so do you still think that's a good thing? And but I mean, sometimes it's like you can't overcome it, and then they call you back 3 years later, and they're like, oh. Or maybe they don't call you because they're embarrassed. But I mean, that's your goal is to try and bring them over to the other side of the bridge.
I think it's like in this scenario, he wanted to buy in one of these hotel condo mixes that has a brand associated. And I'm like,
Hmm.
they don't really appreciate that well yet. But I realized pretty quick, he's like, I'm a rich guy and I just
Yeah,
want this.
he
And
wants
so I'm like, all
status.
right,
Yeah,
cool. Like that's I'm not gonna talk you out of it then.
yeah.
Let's go get it.
Yeah, it sounds like status is the most important thing for him, where maybe that's more valuable, and that maybe that's the right thing for him. But it's like when we go and look at a property with my wife, it's like I'm always thinking resale, and Joanna's like, "No, that's our forever house." And I'm like, I was like, "Okay, but we can look at it from that point of view." But I'm always looking from the resale point of view, and it's good to have kind of both sides or both perspectives, right? So
For sure. For sure.
all right, Tom, I could keep talking business with you because I feel like we just scratched the surface of the wisdom that you have. But I want to make sure we keep it ideally close to an hour or just under an hour here. So you ready for the rapid fire? I got 3 questions here for you. You ready?
Sounds good. Yep.
All right. So first question is what is your favorite book that's had the biggest impact in your career?
Most recently, a book called Oversubscribed. And it was this it's for marketing. And essentially it's the 7-11-4 theory, which is how to get people that don't know you to trust you. And it was like they have to have consumed your content for 7 hours, right? So like thinking about the stuff you're putting out there, And then the 11 was they had to have like found it, like watched 11 videos or something or whatever it was. And then the 4 was like in 4, or it was 11 touch points. So, maybe they saw it here, maybe they saw it there. And then the 4 was the location. So maybe they came to an in-person seminar, they watch you on YouTube, they listen to you on a podcast, or they saw your billboard, like whatever it is. And that was kind of the new age thought of how do you get strangers to want to reach out to you if you don't have a relationship with them. That was pretty profound on me based on the YouTube side of stuff and trying to get serious about that.
Yeah, that's really good. So 7 hours of watch time, 11 touch points, or maybe like a text email campaign, right? And
exactly.
then 4 different locations. So so it could be on YouTube, it could be at maybe an open house, it could be a billboard, it could be Instagram, flyer. Okay, that's really good. Yeah, because there's a chance to you got 1 or 2 spots in their mind for an agent. You want to be one or 2. So that makes a lot of sense. I like that. That actually forces you to get on and record some video, unless you're gonna.
That's it,
right?
Because if they actually like you, there should be at least 7 hours of you on the internet that they can find.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that. No, that's really good. I haven't read it. I'll have to pick that up. That's great. All right. Second question: 3 words that best describe you. The people that know you best, how would they describe you?
Oh, I've never actually been asked that before. Calm.
Mm-hmm. You can
efficient.
brag. You can brag about yourself too. Efficient.
I think, efficient. I think I'm efficient with things.
Yeah.
And this is gonna sound like I'm making fun of myself, but I'm not. Simple. Like I don't overcomplicate anything because it drives me insane. Yeah. And I just want to know how to do something, and then I'll go figure it out.
Yeah, you keep it simple. Yeah, I would add a couple words. I'd add I mean, you're very likable, and I'd call you they're humble as well, and so that's been my experience so far. And I know my brothers as well. They've connected and spoke highly of you as well, and so very good. All right, last question is: what advice would you give to the listeners that maybe are just starting out in real estate, or maybe they're in real estate right now, they're struggling, and they want to take their business to the next level?
Yeah, you have to find a way to create opportunity in your business, and not be attached to the outcome. And it's not that you don't care, it's that like there's just things that you can't control. Very early on, and I don't know if this is true or not, it got stuck in my head from a real estate coach. It wasn't Rich. It was 1 in 4 works out. So random Facebook lead, your best friend, 1 in 4 opportunities that presents itself to you, 25% is going to turn into a firm transaction if you just average it all out. So when things fall apart or this happens, it's just knowing like, that's okay. That was just one of the 3 that was never going to work out. And let's go find the next one that's going to come together. So that would be my advice, is just focusing on finding opportunity and being okay if it doesn't all work out, because it doesn't for anybody.
Yeah, that's really good. It comes down to a numbers game. You just need more up at bats.
Yep.
Right. What are the best baseball players in the world? What are they shooting? Was that
300?
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
So they got 3 out of 10 they hit, and they're the best in the world. So as a real estate agent, you get 3 out of 10, you're doing just fine. Very cool, Tom. Well, this was great. It just flew by the time. And so for the listeners out there, if they want to send you business, they want to refer business to the Toronto area, condo market, single family, freehold, what's the best way they can reach out to you?
Instagram is probably the best. It's just The Storey Team, and stories spelled EY, like stories of a building. How you have to put it in your listing description, EY.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Tom, for coming on the show. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, right on. Well, thanks for listening to the show, guys. If you liked it, please share and subscribe to the channel, where we are building a community of full out real estate agents. I love you guys, and keep on going full out.